I mean, you just nailed it. The blackmail is the globalists with this made-up Russia crap.
Yeah.
And just all of this. And I think the sacrificial lamb is a miscalculation, except for I know about other paperwork issues that Trump reportedly just said, oh, that's nothing. It really is nothing. He's the president. I mean, the president can do whatever deals he wants. That's what he does is international stuff, then Congress approves it. This idea that the president and his people can't talk to the Russians is just asinine. Go ahead.
Well, you know, Alex, the thing that they're so concerned about was a phone call that happened 7 weeks after the election, 3 weeks before the inauguration. It was on the day that the Obama administration decided that they were going to do some last-minute interference with the Trump administration by imposing sanctions, by throwing out Russian diplomats or spies or whatever they were. But nevertheless, I can imagine that when Flynn was talking to them, just as you said earlier, that this wasn't a key part of what they were talking about. I can imagine maybe he called him up to talk about Syria, and the Russian ambassador said, you see all this stuff that happened today, the sanctions and the other stuff? And, yeah, don't worry about it.
Well, that's admitted. No, I mean, that's admitted. He said you got to talk to the president.
Yeah, exactly. And so what he said in his letter was, he said, I inadvertently left out some details. He did not mislead. He did not lie to them. And as you
That's
also
like if we have a 2-hour conversation at dinner like we've had before, and we say, what'd you talk about at dinner? Oh, mainly the work and the news. And like, you didn't tell me you talked about, you know, how you once had a VW van or just
Yeah, that happens to me and my wife all the time. It's like, I'm thinking the central part of the conversation is this or that, and then later on I said, oh, you know, we mentioned something about, you know, a car or something like that. You didn't tell me you talked about the car, and it's like, well, it wasn't important. It wasn't anything. It was just a side thing. But I'm sure that's what happened. But Alex, I think this is a self-inflicted wound. And you know, when you're swimming with sharks, you can't cut yourself in the water. And now the sharks are turning around. We've got the Democrats who are saying, this is just the beginning. That's the chairman of the House Democrat Congress caucus. He said, this is just the beginning. This is bigger than Flynn. But even more importantly, Alex, we've got a GOP senator who's on the Senate Intelligence Committee, Roy Blunt, and he's saying there needs to be an exhaustive investigation of the ties between Russia and Trump. And he's saying, we need to find out. We need to get Flynn in here. We need to grill him. We need to know. What did he know?
That's right. This is the Republican Party
when did he know it?
coming in to bully and take over the libertarian Americana movement.
And because Roy Blunt is somebody who, I'm sure he has deep ties with the CIA. He sits on the Senate Intelligence Committee. During the election, he tried to distance himself from Trump for political reasons. He said, I'm not really sure. I don't know if he eventually wound up going to the RNC. He said he wasn't going to go because he didn't want to tie himself closely to Trump. With Flynn, we've got somebody, as you pointed out, who was frank in his assessment. He exposed the CIA's surrogates, whether they want to call them Al-Qaeda or ISIS. It's the same thing. They're being run by the CIA. And so it was a masterful move, we thought, when Trump put this guy in charge of intelligence here, and now he had to be removed by the intelligence state.
And I want to be clear. I'm not trying to, again, lionize the CIA, but the good people in the CIA had a huge part in all the info coming out about how we were backing Al-Qaeda and ISIS and stopping that and whistleblowing. But it's the globalists at the top that are trying to sabotage and that we're surveilling President-elect Trump like he's some type of Russian agent. The president can talk to the Russians all he wants. He's the president. That's why we elected him. He's our leader.
Well, absolutely. And think about what happened, Alex. When the intelligence people recorded this conversation, they provided a transcript to David Ignatius at the Washington Post. They also gave the information to Sally Yates, who is an Obama holdover and as Attorney General.
So now you have illegal spying going on against U.S. citizens and giving it to the media.
And that's why Trump says the real story here are the illegal leaks. They've been doing this repeatedly to embarrass Trump, to try to entrap him in something.
Well, let's go further to this fired head of the Justice Department, because that's a good point you make, that, I mean, it's the Justice Department that's been blackmailing.
Yeah, absolutely. It was Sally Yates who did this. Sally Yates gets this information from the people in the intelligence, or I would call them the Stasi state, because that's the way these people are acting now. This is a surveillance state that is using its intelligence capability, its eavesdropping capability as a political weapon against Donald Trump. Remember that even before the election, we had John Brennan, who was the sitting head of the CIA, campaigning against Donald Trump. I've never seen anything like that in my entire life, for the CIA to be that openly political. We know they go around, they manipulate things, they do stuff in secret, they assassinate people, but now they're doing this kind of stuff in open.
Sure, and it gets worse than that. Then we have all these foreign leaders weighing in and giving money to Hillary, and Hillary meeting secretly with Putin, and all the money going back and forth. So everything they say about Trump, they've done. But this is a point McAdoo made last night, and I looked into this. This is true. because I know how Twitter works, and Watson's going to do a report on this. Trump, they first said get rid of his Twitter feed a few months ago. They talked about taking it away from the president. That's how arrogant they are. Now they just block any positive tweets from the top 100. You've got to see more, even though almost all of it's positive. So when you go look at his tweets, all you see is people attacking. Here, let's put it up. So Trump comes out and says, the real story here is why are there so many illegal leaks coming out of Washington? Will the leaks be happening as I deal with North Korea?
Oh, you bet they will.
Etc. But then if you open it up, it's like, good morning, real Donald Trump. Let's recap. You lose court cases. Yeah, totally going to be overturned. You lose appeal. That's going to be overturned. They're 80% reversed. Your Supreme Court pick insults you. Flynn just resigns. And, you know, that's a good point. There are a lot of backstabbers, not a lot of people with Trump's courage. And, again, it's not that I want to lionize Trump. He is like a lion with all these wolves attacking him and really is trying to do good, and everything's aligned against him. And then I hear all this sniveling that we're backing a Goldman Sachs person when the people he put in from Goldman Sachs are battling Goldman Sachs, and they're destroying Goldman Sachs' global government and the TPP that Goldman Sachs basically created with Hillary. And again, he got zero money from them, and they banned their employees giving money to Trump, which is, by the way, illegal. So, I mean, but then all the pseudo-fake conservatives and pseudo-fake liberals get to be high and mighty, David, and say, oh, we're supporting the big elite president as he desperately tries to cut their taxes and regulations and kill the carbon tax. So the big question is, David, does the average American out there even deserve Donald Trump?
Probably not, Alex. And, you know, when I saw that David Petraeus is one of the people they're touting as being one of the 3 to replace Michael Flynn, it's like, are you serious? Are you seriously considering the guy who, next to Hillary Clinton, the person that he supported
he's also anti-gun, supported Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, absolutely. So you look at that, you look at Sally Yates, who is saying, hey, he could be blackmailed, and she's the one who's doing the blackmailing. It's absolutely amazing. And then, of course, yesterday I talked about the fact that they were bandying about the Logan Act, which you pointed out many times at Bilderberg, and we talked about how you pointed out again in 2012. These people are coming in violation of the Logan Act, and yet
they go to a private meeting.
Who try to use the Logan Act against Michael Flynn.
Exactly. The Logan Act is government officials meeting in a private corporate meeting to discuss their private business in a government capacity selling favors. It's not the incoming national security advisor making the routine hundreds of phone calls to world leaders and chief ambassadors you're supposed to make, and they admit that.
And they're meeting at Davos talking about how they can undermine the Trump administration. That's precisely what we're talking about with the Logan Act, but they get away with it.
Let's expand on that. We should all point out, Communist China openly admits they're manipulating our media and against Trump, and Democrats are openly working with them with Republicans. But that's okay for the Chinese president to say, don't worry, I'll defeat Trump and the conservatives. All right, now David's going to pop back in for 5 minutes the next hour. We've got a few minutes left here. I want to make a point. They're now saying Trump violated national security when he's the president, when he met with the Japanese president at their dinner and showed photos of the North Korean launch that's been on the news. You have to understand the CIA and all these other agencies classify newspaper articles and say that no one in the CIA is allowed to read them if they don't want stuff heard. There's more BS there than anything. It's like, oh, look, there's photos of Trump with the prime minister looking at satellite photos and looking at stuff. Holy moly. Oh, my gosh, it's treason to have 2 world leaders meet. This is great how they're working at dinner and talking about North Korea. This is a president that's actually engaged. And Trump's on the phone getting stuff done. I mean, it's just amazing. But instead, we like Hillary Clinton and Jerry Epstein and the whole pedophile crew. And I've got so much other news to get to. It's just incredible. There's a lot of good news taking place as well. But look at this. George Soros insider. Banks ending cash to establish world government. This has been publicly announced in the newspapers. I'm going to cover this. Mainstream newspapers. Oh, yeah, we're setting up world government. Yeah, we're not going to have any cash. But the crazy conspiracy theorists say we're going to do that, but we are. Farage blisters EU Parliament forecast 2017 populist surge. Let me tell you 2 big points here. I want to talk about this one, come back with David. 2 things need to happen. Trump needs to organize a true American party within the Republican Party to go after all the Republican blue bloods that have tried to block his agenda. And he's got to come out and do what I've told him over the phone, I begged him to do. I said, you got to go after him for working with the communist Chinese and getting money from him, and Hillary from the Saudi Arabians, and how the Chinese government's openly saying they're going to block you, sir. That's opium and espionage, and they're going to claim you're a Russian, and they're never going to stop. He's got to do it, man. He's got to take them out with the crimes they've committed, or they're going to frame him and us and shut this whole thing down. Because God forbid we get taxes cut on poor people. And God forbid we build some super rail, and God forbid we get some jobs back in Detroit. And God forbid we don't pay carbon taxes when nobody else has to pay them. God almighty. Listen, I plug so little, I'm so focused that Buckley came in this morning, and last night the accountant said, we're losing money right now. You need to make some money, Mr. Jones, because we're not making that much selling a bunch of toothpaste because we don't make any money on that. We're selling a lot of toothpaste, though. It's fluoride-free with nano silver and also iodine. It's great, super blue. Proprietary, it's amazing, best out there, maybe the biggest lab in the country, but our proprietary blend. Again, it's organic and it's fluoride-free. Infowarsstore.com, InfowarsLife.com. Get your Super Male Vitality, get your Survival Shield X2, get all the amazing game-changing products, DNA Force, Natural Defense, our probiotic. Biome Defense is the best out there. All of this funds the operation, BioTrue Selenium, and we need your support. Sleep Aid, Knockout, Infowarsstore.com or 888-253-3139. But whatever you do, pray for us and spread the articles and videos, because we're giving them 110% run. We're fighting as hard as we can. I'm pouring it all out here, folks. You know, I am in the same guild, the same brotherhood as Trump. It's not that I even admire him. It's that I'm in the same zeitgeist. I know Trump really wants to restore the republic. He really is not to get you, that's all. And he really knows what the globalists are, a bunch of pedophile devil worshippers. He wants to fight them. And he gets demonized, he gets lied about. I mean, look, I knew about this weeks ago. It's now in the news. Keith Schiller, who's been Trump's bodyguard for almost 30 years, veteran, New York police officer before that, done a great job. Trump's keeping him for good reasons. Hell, they've caught Secret Service agents, you know, planning all sorts of stuff and saying they hope Trump dies, basically. Not that all the Secret Service is bad. They're coming after him. And he knows that. And I know more about his security than just that. He trusts military people. So Trump's got multiple layers and people watching watchers. He's got the Department of Defense watching the Secret Service. The Secret Service isn't bad. It's just super infiltrated. And just like the Russians are, you know, saying we're afraid they're going to kill Trump. Hell, they're on every channel there is saying kill Trump. So in closing, looking at that, I mean, this is so real, David. The news is so over the top, insanely sensational that I've never in my life had anxiety attacks, but I really thought about what I'm having, where I have trouble breathing now. A lot of times when I'm looking at this, I'm like, I'm waking up at 3:30 in the morning, and I'm just like, this is a freaking nightmare, man. We have these horrible pedophiles running everything. They're openly moving against Trump. They're saying he's a freaking Russian spy, and he can't talk to the Japanese president about North Korea. I mean, it's just so obvious that the bad guys are out to get Trump. What do you say?
Absolutely, Alex. That's the most amazing thing, that they would try to make something out of this meeting with the Japanese prime minister. And Alex, this underscores the fact that if he doesn't go on offense, he can't just play defense. They're going to keep coming after him no matter how absurd the charges. Here's an example of some more of the double standard. When The Hill talks about Trump saying the real story here are the illegal leaks. Are you going to try to undermine me when I'm dealing with North Korea? Well, of course they are. They're going to do anything that they can. But then at the bottom of the story, what The Hill says is, well, during the campaign, he signals his affection for leaks that were hurting Hillary Clinton. Well, that's a very different thing, because in those leaks, and certainly WikiLeaks and Julian Assange did not like Hillary Clinton, just like the NSA and the surveillance state doesn't like Donald Trump, because he's exposing, along with Michael Flynn, what had happened in Syria and other places. But when we saw those leaks about Hillary Clinton, we saw them in complete. We saw them in full context. What we're seeing here, this being leaked out selectively to the Washington Post,
they only
to Democrats,
tell us,
is taken out of context.
Exactly. They only tell us their view on it, and they never show them to us, because when they later come out, it's all a bunch of bull.
It's innuendo. And so what they say, well, you know, he talked to them about, you know, he talked to the Russians about the sanctions or whatever. We don't know what that was. It wasn't substantial. I'm sure it wasn't substantial, but we're never going to see that transcript. Washington Post will see it. The Democrat acting attorney general.
Look, it comes down to this. Who do we trust? Donald Trump and the generals and patriots and Bannon with a history for this country, or a bunch of globalist scum that openly have the Ninth Circuit ruling that kids in California can't wear American flag shirts? I mean, it's the enemy. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's
Well,
like
Alex, when we
saying
look
I'm a
at
Russian agent. That's ridiculous.
When we look at Sally Yates of the Department of Justice, it just reminds us of all these hangovers from the Obama administration. Same thing is true in the CIA. Same thing is true in the EPA. And we have to, the thing that really concerns me, Alex, is going back to the election. When I saw John Brennan openly involving himself in a domestic election, that was beyond belief.
Signaled the
it used to be the
arrogance that the
CIA
deep
was
state-
outrageous if they did it in foreign countries.
Exactly. I want you to finish that, and we'll go to our next guest. We'll come back and finish the bookend on that. But yes, it signaled, though, not just that they overthrow foreign countries, they're trying this here, that they're arrogantly were lining up to do it. They wouldn't have 20 newspapers, Hollywood stars, comedians, TV stars saying kill Trump, organize kill Trump every day, and nothing happens if they weren't planning something big. I mean, folks, these people want to mount America's head on the wall. They're scared of our power. Here's the deal. Everybody knows, and all those globalist yellow bellies know, and all their Renfields know, and all their little Draculas know, and all their control freaks are fully aware of the fact that nationalism from the UK to Italy to Brazil to the United States, it's happening everywhere. And people know about globalism and how it's a plan for world government and global banking and global carbon taxes. I mean, hell, they're on the news now saying we're getting rid of cash, we're going to have a global corporate government. And Obama's built a bunker 2 miles from the White House, and they're hiring 30,000 people to go out and have riots. And on every newspaper I look at says kill Trump, murder Trump. I mean, it's just everywhere. It's from comedians every day to movie stars to Hollywood. Oh, and I didn't get to this. Who's that big pop star and attractive lady that I was making fun of yesterday? The human being. I don't want to say a black lady. It's just a human being. What was her name? The media made fun of it. I didn't know her name. I was talking. Yeah. She was at the, no, not her. She was the lady that I was talking about. They ought to sell her on a slave block in Somalia and see how much she likes that during the Grammys. Yeah, J-Lo. Folks, I literally hardly know who that is. And I didn't literally say she ought to be sold on a slave block in Somalia. I said, if she's up there whining and the whole thing is about let the Islamists into the country and do all this for the most hardcore countries like Somalia, she literally would be enslaved and gang raped in minutes on the ground in Somalia. I mean, women are sold on slave blocks. Women are absolute chattel there. And so I'm just sick of hearing how the West is evil and bad when this lady's got hundreds of millions of dollars. I did look that part up. And she's just an idiot. I mean, it's outrageous that they're bitching about the West. And then you had rappers up there because they kind of mixed different people I was talking about and just put it on her to make me look like some mean guy bullying women when it's the Islamists that are doing that. But that's my example of how this just goes on and on and on. See, I don't plan a lot of stuff here on the show. I just read that stuff this morning and meant to print articles about it and talk about it. And it just popped in my head. And I'm like, who is that lady? And the newspapers made jokes like that. Like, he doesn't know who J-Lo is. I really don't. Sorry. I do know about the 16 intelligence agencies. I do know about weaponized syphilis put into ticks that's killed millions in the U.S., called Lyme's disease spreading everywhere. I do know about leprosy spreading all over and the media covering it up. I do know about fission fusion. I do know about all sorts of Elon Musk off-world plans. And I also know about the human-animal hybrid projects they're now admitting. And I've talked to engineers that were involved in it. I told you about it 20 years ago. And I do know that there's a real civilization around us, and it's scary. And then there's all this pop stuff of J-Lo and Jay-Z and all these other narcissistic dumbasses hopping around. And then the Huffington Post, everybody's like, did Trump leak classified info? And then it's him and the Japanese prime minister looking at the news of videos and satellite stuff of the missile that almost hit Japan that North Korea launched. And then they just sit there and say, look, are they discussing classified stuff separately? I mean, this is insane asylum level. Holy moly. That's what the Huffington Post says. Here, let me read it for folks, for radio listeners. It was fascinating to watch the flurry of activity at the dinner. When the news came that North Korea had launched a missile in the direction of Japan, the Prime Minister Abe of Japan huddles with his staff, and the president is on the phone with Washington, D.C. The two world leaders then conference, and then went into another room to hastily arrange press conference. Wow, the center of action. But you go into the article, it talks about, is this illegal? So now the president can't even watch the news. Photos appear to show Donald Trump reviewing sensitive intelligence at the Mar-a-Lago patio. Trump works 7 days a week, 18 hours a day. It's well known. He's working all the time. If one thing, he's got more stamina than anybody I've ever seen. I mean, the 20-year-old. This guy's 70. He is uber-mentioned, okay, when it comes to that. And they're pissed that he's not on 4 months of golf and vacation like Obama, who just would say, I got briefed the next day. You see the Japanese leader and him are just run off to confer, and they're like, is that sensitive? Is that? Because, you know, the president, he doesn't even get to read the newspaper. He can't talk to anybody. He's got to go through the Republican Party, and Lindsey Graham is high and mighty, and if we don't do it, Lindsey Graham says it's all over. David Knight, Michael Snyder's with us for the rest of the hour. I want you to get some final comments. This is just an incredible time to be alive, but the good news for me is nationalism, awakening to the globalist, to their criminal system is exploding everywhere, and there's no way they can put the genie back in the bottle, but listeners need to know. I wouldn't expand in the face of all this if I didn't think we couldn't beat it. And quite frankly, I don't like to manage people. I don't want to. We have responsibility. I know for a fact that Breitbart's contracting, other major Patriot sites are contracting, because a lot of people think the war is over, even though it just begun. We're exploding because our listeners get it. But I don't want to continue to explode up against the enemy. I want to beat them. They're dangerous. I'm not afraid to die, man, but I don't want to. You understand? I got up at 3:30 in the morning because I could just see energy. I could feel it. It's in the everybody feels it. I want to rest. I don't want this fight to keep going. But you know what? My flesh just doesn't have what it takes. My spirit is, you're going to work 24 hours a day, and what are you doing? Not fighting harder. Because I realize how evil they are. It's not like some football game where I want to beat the globalists just because they're the enemy. They're bad people. Their stock and trade is kidnapping kids, and they know it. And I noticed Hillary, it's coming out from Adon Salazar in a few minutes, tweeted about Pizzagate saying General Flynn went down because of Pizzagate. He never tweeted Pizzagate. His son did. When the head of Blackwater came out and said, my federal law enforcement associates say this is all about child trafficking around the world. Hillary Clinton slices Michael Flynn with hot Pizzagate. Yeah, look at her, boy. She's got the look. Somebody ain't home. I mean, somebody else is there. She's got that Joker look. She's got the Jezebel spirit. And she made the big joke. You'll get your job at Domino's, bro? Gotta get your job at Domino's? A little bit of a celebration. Dear Mike Flynn and Mike Flynn Jr., she retweeted, what goes around comets, and give your pizza obsession jobs Domino's. There you go. No, we don't have the pizza obsession, Felipe Renez or whatever your name is. No, actually, we don't like that kind of pizza. We like the kind that gets to grow up and have a life and have dignity. We don't get our pizza out of backyards. All right, David Knight, final comments, and we're going to our next guest. I appreciate your fine work.
Alex, one of the things that concerns me is I think Trump is acting too presidential. During the elections, he was not averse to intimidating his opponents. That's how he won the election. Now I think they are starting to intimidate him. They're using everything they can to try to embarrass him, and they've got a hit list. They've got Flynn, they've got Bannon, they've got Miller, they've got Sessions. These are the people that are core to understanding what's going on with globalism, and they want to take them out. Now, they've just taken out Flynn. They're trying to take out Bannon by embarrassing Trump, putting Bannon up on the cover of Time magazine, saying he's the real brains behind the operation. So
they do the same thing to me. They say Alex Jones runs Trump because they can't stand he's reading the news site at night.
That's right. And with Miller, somebody who's been a very astute advisor to both Sessions and now to Trump. Of course, he helped to bring Sessions along on the immigration issues, on TPP as well. We've now got John Dean from Watergate saying he's going down. They've got a list here of the people who understand the problem, who are pushing back against it. At the same time, we see people in France saying, for the first time, after watching Brexit, after watching Trump win an election, for the first time, I believe that my vote can really do something here in France. We're hearing the same stuff from the voters in France. And of course, they're using, because they're the globalists.
And Soros has admittedly hired Google. Soros has hired Google to block all the nationalist groups again. And the State Department's with Soros, even though Trump supposedly runs it, Soros still runs the State Department and is trying to stop the nationalist movement. But it gets better. Trying to stop the Islamists because they're Russian agents. Man, didn't you know that you didn't have your kids, you didn't have your life, you didn't build your engineering company, you didn't build your other retail companies, you didn't do all the things you did exposing people having toxic stuff tested on them, David? You were animated by Russia. Did you realize your mother, when she laid down on her back to give birth to you, boy, that was a Russian?
And that's what they're saying in France now. They're saying the Russians are going to hack our elections and so forth. They're losing everywhere. Alex, in Greece, the people are now saying we'd rather use the U.S. dollar rather than the euro. And so they're losing this battle, but they're not giving up. And he's got to go on offense, not on defense. He's got to intimidate these people. He's got to identify who these traitors are in the surveillance state that are openly trying to subvert our elections, like John Brennan and his cronies. He's got to get those people out of the surveillance state. This is a Stalinist state that is in Washington, and they're working with the Democrats and the mainstream media.
These are people that study evil. They love evil. They think you're crazy if you're not Machiavellian. They'd rob somebody for $1 instead of make 1,000 with them. They're just all about dominating and screwing everyone over. They're just an infesting group of devil worshippers. And I say that because that's what they are, folks. They're devil worshippers. It's all about them. There's different varieties. Some are actual classic ones. Others are pedophiles. Others, but they're just all about them, win, 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 hurt everybody else. David Knight, thank you so much. God bless you.
Thank you, Alex.
Paul Watson's hosting the next hour. Look, I'm not going to sit here and say, see, I told you so, that communist Chinese-style net censorship was coming to the web, because it's already here. It's being announced. The way you keep the internet open and free is you get involved more than ever. Go to Infowars.com/app. A new battleship in the fight. Infowars Live, available right now. We're looking for a crew to man it. You going to sit down and play games and be a trendy? Or are you going to be part of history? Don't sit by and let the internet and free speech be stolen from you. Take action.